Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to show you step by step how to build a Tron Legacy costume using the exact same lighting technology that was used for the costumes in the actual movie. Traditional costume lighting techniques like LEDs won't produce those smooth, evenly lit glowing lines the way they appeared in the film. For that you're going to need to use Electroluminescent Tape, also known as EL tape. Now way back in 2016 I did cobble together a Tron Legacy costume for my son for Halloween. I only had a month to do it. It was basically a bunch of electroluminescent tape just hot glued on top of some quickly made foam armor. It definitely looked good, but it also looked pretty basic. And it was also my first time working with EL tape, and I was still learning how to make reliable, durable electrical connections in order to power it. And so I guess I just felt kind of bad because I knew if I had had more time, I could have done a better job. So 3 years later, in 2019, we decided to give it another shot. And I planned ahead. I gave myself 2 months to work with this time, and it really paid off. I really think it came out spectacular. As you can see, there's obviously a lot more detail now. It's a lot closer to screen accuracy with the film now that the lighting is embedded into the armor, as opposed to being hot glued on top of it where it could get bent or pulled around. Overall, I think the end result looks really slick. As a matter of fact, ever since we first posted the original video of the costume, people have been asking me and messaging me to show them how I built this thing, and that's what we're going to do right now.
Alright, this is EL tape. This is the stuff that makes your costume actually light up when you connect a 12-volt electrical charge to it, so it's pretty much the most important part of your costume. Now almost all EL tape comes with its own wiring already attached. The wiring will come with easy snap connectors to connect to a battery pack. But for this costume, we're going to have to cut multiple pieces of EL tape to different lengths and shapes. And that means we're going to have to make our own custom electrical wiring connections to the EL tape pieces. This is one of the main things I'm going to be showing you how to do later in this video. Now another important note. Out of all the different brands I tried using, I ended up going with a brand called Elumiglow. And that's only because their EL tape seemed to have the largest contact area for connecting wires to. But if I had to do it over again, I would strongly recommend using the flexible version of their EL tape. It's called Vinyl. It's actually made for clothing, so it can bend and flex without losing its power connection. It's important. I'll put a link to it in the description. This isn't a paid ad or a sponsored video or anything. It's just that once you've already finished building your costume, it is a major headache if you have to troubleshoot your EL tape segments going dark or losing power, and the Vinyl stuff is way more reliable if you're using EL tape for a wearable application like we're going to be doing. Okay, on to wiring. Now I promise to keep this simple. So you see these 3 black boxes here? These are actually power inverters, but that's not important right now. Let's pretend these 3 black boxes are actually EL tape strips. Each EL tape strip needs to have its own wire leading directly back to the main battery pack wire. This is called a parallel circuit. You see how each strip or black box gets its very own wire directly back to the power source? That's what you want. Now what you don't want to have is this, where the one power from the battery pack delivers power to the first strip, and then that first strip delivers power directly to the next strip, and then that strip delivers power to the next one, and so on and so on. That's called a series circuit, where the last strip in the chain only gets whatever power is left over from the first 2 strips. For more information, just Google parallel versus series circuits, but you really don't need to learn all of that. You basically want to always wire EL tape in parallel. But to keep it simple for this video, just remember to give each EL tape strip its very own wires leading directly back home to the battery pack. Okay, on to the supplies. Alright, we'll need a heat gun, hot glue gun, small craft soldering iron for detailing foam armor, a larger soldering iron for soldering electrical wires. We're going to need black Gorilla Tape. Now this is for masking EL tape to create custom shapes like circles and striped patterns, contact cement for gluing the foam armor, and lots of black craft foam to make the actual costume. Now before we start measuring and cutting our costume, we're going to want to sketch it all out on paper first. Design and sketch every piece from the front, back, and sides. The more detail the better. And don't worry, you can always make changes later on during the build. The purpose of these sketches is to act as a guide so you don't lose your way once you start getting deeper and deeper into your project.
I also had tons of reference photos from the actual film production playing on my monitors here in my garage workshop the entire time I was doing the build.
Now let's get into this build and start making our first cuts. So I start by cutting out a rough template for each body part, things such as biceps, forearms, and then I fit them, just checking for fitment, right onto the actual body of the person that's going to be wearing the costume. And we're just checking for fitment, doesn't have to be perfect. Once I have an idea of the rough measurements, I take the paper templates and transfer them directly over to the art foam. Then I take a ballpoint pen and just make a light outline of exactly what I want the final foam armor to look like. And once that's done, it's time to start cutting. Once we've cut that basic armor shape free from the art foam, we test it again on the model for fitment. Once we've confirmed that it fits, we're free to work with it now and add more detail. Like these little bump out tabs that I'm adding here so we can attach Velcro straps later on after we finish heat shaping the armor. Now we can use the heat gun to start heating the foam so we can begin shaping it. I'm using PVC to get that curved shape, but really you can use whatever you want. In this case I actually had to switch to using air conditioner line insulation foam as a shaper to achieve that smaller, tighter circumference. Now let's test fit the armor once more to make sure it fits on his skinny little arms. Okay, looks good. Now it's time to glue on the straps. So I'm going to hot glue the Velcro straps directly onto those two little rectangular bump out tabs that I cut out earlier. I'm also gluing all the way around the edges of the elastic strap so that it doesn't come loose from the armor once we put it on. Don't forget to reinforce the top side with glue as well. So I've got these industrial strength Velcro strips. They're outrageously strong. We need to use this to create anchor points on the foam armor for the elastic to connect to. These things are great. You just cut off the patch that you need, peel off the backing, and the automotive grade adhesive on the back sticks right to the foam. It'll never come off. Very important. Keep test fitting. Always keep test fitting throughout your build. You don't want to get halfway through your project and find out half your stuff doesn't fit due to heat shaping or shrinkage. Looks good, but this is just the first layer of foam armor. We still need to reinforce it with more layers and detailing, but before that we need to build up the electronics. Okay, so this is a pretty standard piece of EL tape. This is the main ingredient of your costume. This is what makes your suit glow. Now I've already cut this segment of EL tape down to the length that I need it. So now I'm going to seal it with clear packaging tape to keep the moisture out. I try to get it as airtight as possible. Keeping moisture out will help it last longer. Then I just clip off the excess tape on the edges. Now these are crimp connectors. I've only ever been able to find these at that eLumiglow website. These crimp connectors are what allows you to physically connect electrical wire to power your EL tape. Now for the wiring, I like to take regular old Cat5 Ethernet cable, the sort of network cable that you find in any house, and I cut the heads off and reach inside the cabling and grab the wires and just start pulling and pulling, and it just comes right out. Whole lengths of wire coming right out of that cable. Now what you're left with here are very thin, very flexible wires capable of carrying a 12-volt charge. Just separate off a single twisted pair of wires and strip the ends off with wire strippers or a blade to expose the copper inside. And then break off just 2 crimp connectors and get ready to solder the wires right onto them. Alright, we're going to use a soldering iron and a little electrical solder to tin the wire first. Get it ready for soldering. A little bit is all you need. Just want to get that wire covered in solder. Then move it over to the connector. And then heat the soldered wire directly onto the crimp connector, making a solid joint. And do the same thing with the other wire. Tin the wire with some solder. Move it on over to the connector. Just a little bit of heat, doesn't take much. And make that solid joint with the solder. Look at that. Rock solid. Now when you look at the EL tape, you've got a silver conductive strip on the right and one on the left, and then a center strip. That's the glowing part. On the back, you can see it as well. There's a strip on the right, strip on the left, and then there's the middle channel. That's the glowing part. Now if you look at the crimp connectors, you see these sharp, raspy teeth on the bottom? You want to get one set of teeth on the silver conductive strip and another set of teeth on the center channel. It helps to think of the EL tape as two wires. So the silver side channels are one wire, and the center glowing channel is the other wire. And so you're basically connecting your two wires to the two figurative wires inside the EL tape. Now those sharp teeth on the bottom of each of the two crimp connectors have to puncture through each channel in the EL tape in order to conduct the electricity. So we're going to use some pliers and just sort of crunch down on it to get the puncture started. And then we're going to use this foam as a backing, and we'll take the pliers again and crunch all the way through this time and finish the job. And then you see you've got this little metal backing tab, this bridging tab that joins the two connectors. You just want to bend that back and forth until it breaks off. There we go. And now you've got it. Two separate connections to the two separate channels in the EL tape. Alright, so now I've got it hooked. I've got a little battery pack here. I've got it hooked up. See, I've just twisted the wires. So here it is, all connected. And we're going to test it. And boom! Yes, and look, you can wiggle it around. This is a nice solid connection. And then we're going to just seal it up with our glue gun. Let's turn the power off. Ooh. So that's successful. That is a successful test. Alright, perfect. Okay, all my EL tape is finished and labeled. We've got a thigh piece here. We've finished cutting and soldering all the other EL tape pieces. See, we've got the belt, got the arms, everything's labeled and ready to go. So we're going to start with the thigh piece. See, I've already made an outline on the base layer of thigh armor, and we're going to glue the EL tape right down on it. So take the EL tape that's marked thigh, get the hot glue on it, and we have to work fast because the hot glue cools off quickly. We get that EL tape down on its spot on the armor and keep pressing and keeping it curved while it dries. Alright, with the electronics glued down now, we can focus on the top layer of foam that's going to give it the finishing touch. But first we have to cut out a window to reveal the electronics, the glowing EL tape underneath. So I'm just cutting along this outline that I made here that follows along the same path as the EL tape. And you'll see when this top piece goes over the bottom piece with all the electronics underneath, this window should line up with the EL tape and reveal the glowing tape underneath. It's a really nice effect. As with all pieces, we gotta heat it up first to shape it. And we roll it on our shaping tool just like all the other pieces. Alright, let's do a test fit. And look at that, the window lines up perfectly with the EL tape. You see how that EL tape's gonna glow right to that window that we've cut out? Alright, now I've got to glue it on permanently, and for that we're going to use this contact cement. With contact cement, you just want to make sure that you cover every inch of the two surfaces that you're trying to glue together. Just spread it evenly and try not to miss any spots. Same thing with the bottom piece. Remember, you want to apply that contact cement onto both surfaces that you plan to glue together. Oh, and make sure not to get any contact cement on the EL tape. Once both surfaces are covered, heat it up with the heat gun. Careful not to melt the EL tape. And then it's time to apply the two surfaces together. Now you got to work quickly because the hot cement is drying, but you have to be careful because you only get one shot at this. This contact cement is strong, and I mean real strong, so once these two pieces are glued together, they're stuck. Now you can see here, as I'm sticking these two pieces together, I'm also shaping them at the same time. I'm just kind of massaging the whole thing and to get that final shape, because this is it. Once these two pieces are dried and cooled off, that's the final shape. That's it. Alright, so here we are. It's done heating and drying. Look at this. Look at this. Perfect thigh piece. Perfect. Look at that. So far all these pieces are coming together just spectacular. Just great. Look at that. Okay, so as we all know, every character in the Tron movies has an identity disc mounted on their back. So for our costume, we're going to be using the Spin Master Deluxe Electronic Identity Disc. These things have sound effects, they light up. They were only sold, as far as I know, back in 2010, but they are awesome. Now we've got to figure out a way to mount this disc to the back of the costume. And my idea is to take a red plastic children's cereal bowl, and I spray painted it black, I cut the lip off the edges, and I'm going to drive some screws through it. We're going to make a tension mount. See, I've got this bag of computer component screws. I've got literally thousands of these little screws. They're for mounting hard drives inside a computer, or mounting a motherboard to a case. They're real tiny. They're perfect for this job. Now we've already got 3 of the 4 screws installed on this upside down cereal bowl. So let's go ahead and make a pilot hole and get the 4th one done. So let's pop the screw in there, and then we'll thread it the rest of the way through. Now there it is peeking through on the inside. We're going to put some hot glue on the inside to anchor it down so it doesn't move around. And then we're going to cover the head of the screw on the outside with hot glue as well, just to keep the sharp head from scratching up the disc. Okay, moment of truth. Let's test it out. It should pop right on. Looks good. Secure. Definitely not going to fall off from normal wear. And with just the right amount of force, it should still pop off when you need it to. Yep. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Look at that. Okay, we're ready to move on to the next part. Alright, so ready to do the armor. We got the armor pieces down here. You see, I've got this smaller piece cut here, and then I've got the larger piece. And what we're trying to do is this over here. So you can see there's a bend. You see the bend in the front chest piece? It's like all one piece, but there's like this crease right in there. So we're gonna use a heat gun to make this crease by shaping it with smaller pieces. So come on over here. Alright, so we've got our chart here. I've got our little diagram. So here's the front, here's where the head goes, here's the back. This is the belt that will fold around the front, around the waist to come and meet up here. These two Velcros will meet up down here. So what we're doing now is we're cutting the holes. We've got the base chest plate, and then this is the cover, the front part of the chest plate. Both have been heat shaped. And I'm now cutting the holes for the lights. So basically the lights, the LED lights, will sit inside here like this. I've got these. We'll mask these off. These aren't the final shapes. They'll go like that and like that. And so we need to cut the holes in the front piece, this is going to sandwich the lights. We need to cut the holes so that they can show through. Okay, we've finished cutting out our windows on the front chest piece. All of our electroluminescent tape has been glued down. We've soldered all the wiring. And we've got our test battery pack ready to go. Let's light this thing up and test it out. Boom! And we've got light. Let's drop the top back on. As we fit everything together, everything looks like it lines up really well. The windows are lining up with the lighting perfectly. It's really starting to look nice. Let's glue this all together now. Here we are, and as you can see, I've extended all my wiring and rerouted it up through the shoulder straps. And just like all the other armor we've done, it's time to stick it together with contact cement. Alright, I've finished applying the contact cement and I've joined the two halves together, and we're back to heat shaping once again while the cement dries. And just like before, I'm just trying to pinch and press along all the contours and folds and reheating as I go along, just trying to get it to maintain its shape. And I think that's going to do it. Let's light it up. Oh man, it looks great. Excellent. I like this. Here, give me the camera. Let's trade with the cameraman. Hey, cameraman.
Hello.
You want to,
Yep.
You have to stand real close because the wiring is... Here, go ahead. Show us what you got. Oh, Tron. Oh my God, welcome to the grid program. I love it. Nice, you're carrying your battery around. I love it. Just squeeze that around your ribs. Well, let's keep shaping it. All right, I'm gonna turn the camera off. Good job, everyone. Okay, so here we are. We've got the chest piece is pretty much finished. Here we go. So before I seal this up, I want to take a minute to show everybody how this is working here. So we've got these EL tape circles that I cut. You can see the wiring going into them, so we've glued them down here. So we've got a bottom layer for the shoulder strap and then a top layer. I've got cutouts. So what we're doing now is we're laying the electronics in, all the wiring from all these different lights, and these guys. We're laying it all down and gluing it down. We've got the foam, see the foam shoulder straps? This is the bottom layer. Just like we do everything else, we have a bottom layer that the light strips, the EL tape strips glue down onto, and then an upper layer like this that masks them. So the next step, now that we've got this all glued, we'll put this EL tape on here, and then we'll cut, and you see how this closes down over it, like sandwiches over it. So we'll take a razor and we'll cut out, we'll draw it first, we'll cut out a groove to reveal the light through, and we'll make more foam that just goes all the way down. And I'll show you the other piece, because we're on a point now. This is the back piece, and you remember how we did these bolts. So now the disc pops right on and off easily. I mean, just easily, and it just squeezes right on. It doesn't come off, and you can pull it off by just popping it and pulling. So when a person wants to take it off, it's easy. You just pull and pop it, and same thing to put it back on, but it won't come off by itself. It's, you know. So anyway, these strips will go over the shoulders of the person wearing it. You've got this Velcro. This Velcro straps on there and there. And it, so you see, I don't know if you're getting all that, if I'm covering it with my body. So you see how this is working out? So that's where we are right now. We're going to keep going, and if there's another point where I think we should stop and show you how we did something, I'll film that. Alright, end of line. Alright, we're just about done with this costume. All we've got left is to mount the battery pack. So we've got 8 AA's here. That's going to be 12 volts. I've soldered the wires on here and sealed it with hot glue. We've got the power inverter here. All EL tape requires a power inverter, so I've hot glued it on. I've got a single wire here with an easy snap connector that's going to deliver power to the entire rest of the wiring harness for the costume. Now, as for mounting the battery pack to the costume, Take a look at this production photo from the actual movie set. You see this right here? Right here? That is the actual battery pack that powers the costume in the movie. The batteries that power their entire suit are right there on their backs. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take this gutter drain bracket that I got from Lowe's hardware store, and we're going to snip the legs off. And then, actually, instead of telling you, let's just show you the rest of the process. Alright, so step one, chop off the legs. Now I'm just going to match them up against the battery pack just to check the height. We might need to cut them a little bit shorter. For the battery pack cover, we've got this old screw carton. I bought a bunch of screws years ago. Keep in mind we're going to be spray painting this all black in the end, so it doesn't matter what color any of these components are. So we're going to cut the legs a little bit shorter just to match the height of the battery pack. We'll match it up against the battery pack cover as well, just to make absolutely sure we've got the right height. Okay, it all fits together perfectly. All we got to do now is spray paint the whole thing black, and then bolt it to the costume. Okay, we're all done. It looks great. As you can see, the battery pack cover has been spray painted all black. It just pops right off. It's just Velcro holding it on. The battery pack itself is also just Velcroed in, so it also pops right out for maintenance. There's Velcro on each end. And for the two white brackets that hold the entire battery assembly onto the costume, I ended up just using hot glue instead of bolts. Hot glue was enough to hold all 8 batteries. Looks good. Let's get suited up and see how the whole costume looks all put together. While we're watching this process, I think maybe now is a good time to point out some things that I might have done differently. The first thing is that I've always wondered if it would have been a better idea to just glue the armor pieces directly to the fabric bodysuit, maybe using some E6000 adhesive. Then maybe my kid could just slip the whole costume on as one piece. I can't help but wonder if that would have been easier than using the elastic Velcro straps. It wasn't terrible, but it was definitely a bit tricky getting the costume on and off, dealing with these Velcro straps and having to deal with moving the wiring out of the way while suiting up. Anyway, here you can see I'm using easy snap connectors to hook up the power to the left arm. And then the same thing with the right arm. Get the right arm hooked up. And then hook the legs up. And here you can see all of the wiring from all the different parts of the costume runs together into one single harness down below. And then that harness easy snaps to one single connector on the battery. So another big point to make is that despite what you've seen here, I'm really not that experienced with using craft foam. I'm nowhere near the level of mastery and craftsmanship that you see with those professional cosplayers out there. Honestly, I'm just a dad. I'm just a dad who really likes building stuff. But I do think it might have been nice to seal and then paint the foam armor with a satin black finish maybe, just to give it that clean, smooth finish look. I honestly just ran out of time before Halloween. Anyway, I hope you like it, and enjoy this final look at the little guy with his costume finally in action.